Very happy to welcome Reshina Warren. She's the VP of Marketing and Social at the WTA, the Women's Tennis Association. Reshina, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem at all. Not a problem at all. I always start my podcast trying to find out people's sports business origin story. How did you get your start in the world of sports?
Oh my gosh, it all started in the womb. But no, seriously, I grew up around sports and my entire family played sports. And so it was life. And so growing up in kind of the 90s, I'm from Texas. So, Cowboys, America's team,
Yeah.
Chicago Bulls, and Michael Jordan and all of that. So sports was just really integrated seamlessly into my life. And so going into college, I actually have an accounting degree, which is kind of
Yep.
we could probably talk about that later.
I think that was what my intention was when I started you. I got really good scores in accounting, and I'm like, I'll do accounting. Oh no,
Yeah,
I don't want
you
to do
know what?
accounting.
Yeah, let's go over here and do this social media thing, which my mom was very happy about. It's like, what are you doing with your life? So when I went to school, I continued to I played like a year of volleyball in college, and just really just was still a part of sports always. And I started to kind of look around online, and I found Teamwork Online actually. And I found an internship for the Houston Comets. That kind of dates me a little bit
Yep.
because the Houston Comets, they're no longer a part of the WNBA, but had an internship with the Houston Comets, and I fell in love. And it was one of the most amazing experiences. I mean, I got to do, I grew up watching the Houston Comets. And so to be able to work for an organization, see Cynthia Cooper, Cheryl Swoops, Tina Thompson, and all those amazing, Hall of Famers. Being able to work with them, it was a great experience going into my last year of college, and so that was a summer internship, and then I was just kind of on the hunt to work in sports. Finished my accounting degree, but was definitely on the hunt to work in sports, and so that was kind of my first. That was my first intro into the business side. And then I wanted to go into grad school, and someone told me about the sports management program at the University of Central Florida. So the DeVos Sport Management Program, where I received a double master's in sport business and my master's in business administration. And so I went into that, and kind of that just took off from there. My career took off from there.
And so again, those getting that early taste, with some internships and sort of getting that wider, I guess, sports scene. It wasn't you weren't just in the financial. You're looking at ticketing and operations and sponsorship activation and that kind of stuff. Was it just something that's like I want to get into and just say, hey, it's a space that I can apply my skill set?
Well, it was, starting out, it was like I didn't even know I could work in sports. And so, and no one in my family really knew about it. You just kind of saw you just saw it on television, right? Or you went to the stadium and you saw it, and you never thought about, or at least I didn't as a young, immature child, didn't think about it. And I just took the opportunity, and my motto was basically, let's get my foot in the door and see what I like, what I don't like. And while I was during my internship with the Houston Comets, I basically went around and I talked to different people. What do you do? And because it was an internship, I got a chance to shadow people, experience things. And then when I went into the sport business management program, I learned a whole different world, being led I was under the leadership of Dr. Richard Lapchick and Dr. Bill Sutton, who is,
Yep.
Bill
Well
Sutton
known.
those two are the goats right there. And so really opened my eyes, and that program, the DeVos Sport Business Management Program, really opened my eyes as well, because we were able to get real life experience. So going into sponsorship activation for the Tulsa Shock, which I helped start that WNBA team right after grad school. I did a sponsorship activation project for the Atlanta Hawks my last year. It was kind of like our final thing, and we were put into groups of like 4 or 5, and we all had to pitch to the Atlanta Hawk executive.
Yep.
And so and that was sponsorship activation. And so that gave me like, oh, I think I want to do this because it was creative. It was merging brands. How can we activate different partners or go out to different partners and things like that? And so it really gave me a good taste of what I wanted to do. I just knew I didn't want to sell tickets. That was the one thing. It's, I always, whenever I speak to students and things like that, it's just as important to figure out what you don't want to do as it is, figuring out what you want to do, because it just kind of marks it off, right? Like, I want to do that.
Most definitely, but also you don't know. Sort of sport does offer all these different avenues, and you sort of got to do a little bit of sampling of different things to know. A lot of people do start in sales because we always need to get the seats, cheeks on the seats, as I like to say, and understanding that as a marketer, but also understanding how you've got to work with those partners and those departments. So when you're looking at the world of sports, you're like, oh, okay, I played sport, I love sport, I want to work in sport. And early on, it's really broad. And then sometimes, you talk to graduates or people early in their journey, they go, oh, cool, I want to work at an NBA team, or I want to work at an NFL team. And they get really narrow in their focus when sport is really wide, both in, breadth of, I guess, teams and organizations, but then also on the partner side, the people who are supplying technology and services to the world of sport. You spent some time at New Line, which is a streaming giant early in the space, and sort of, is that where you sort of learn a little bit more about sport from the other side of the business, but also it was still a relatively new time in the world of streaming. The term cable cutters was just starting to be invented. What was it like learning the ropes of marketing at a company like New Line?
Yeah, it was actually really great. And also it was a 9-to-5 sports job. So
which is very rare, right?
Very rare. But I was looking at all of my friends working. I was like, yeah, I'm going home at 4:30. But it was great. And I didn't realize it at the time that I was really on the cusp of what I was on the working for a streaming technology. I call it a sports technology firm.
Yep.
I didn't realize where I was and that I was working for such a innovative company. They provided the streaming for NHL Network and things like that, and really got into the college athletic space and for streaming games and things. And so that was very eye opening for me. And we developed like some of the first sports apps that came out, and being on that side. So I learned the technical side of sports. I worked really close. Well, even just the technical side of marketing and how closely I work with my developers, learning about the user experiences and how to put together a website that was functional and high functioning for I use Google Analytics and all of that to make those decisions, to see where people were clicking and all of that. And so really got to do a deep dive into all of that, and it was for sure a huge foundation of my career and my marketing journey and social journey, because my boss and I tell him all the time, I'm like, I'm not in this position if you didn't tell me to take paid social seriously. He told me, he said learn it. I need you to learn it. Here are the tools, learn it. He said that's going to take you far, and the rest is history right there.
I completely agree. I mean, you did all your university and you did your MBA, but to be embedded in an organization where you effectively got your you got your sports geek on, because you're in there helping design apps and design websites and user flows and that kind of stuff, but then to be integrating that paid piece, which again in that 2014 2018 range, Meta was changing everything all the time, which they still do.
Yes,
you would have been early on the, hey, what does customer acquisition look like? How can we retarget customers? How can we, pull them along the funnel? Which, when you're in a sports role, whether you're in a content team or it's like an ancillary thing. It's like, oh, and please, can we do this? So to get that skill set, it's a real, really useful tool or skill in your skill set.
Yeah, because so the minor league hockey teams, we basically started their digital marketing. So my boss he started their like Google Ads, running that, and it was subscription based and was really getting generating a lot of revenue by doing that. And so we basically took that model, and at the time we had like Pac-12, who is that? Oklahoma, UCF came along, and I basically kind of taught. I considered myself an extension of those athletic departments, and then
Yep.
taught them how to run digital, and
Yep.
I would run it for them. Or I'm a person who likes to teach you how to fish. I'm not going to gatekeep my knowledge, and so really looking at digital strategy and expanding that into the paid world, because at the end of the day, the more revenue we generated for the colleges and those minor league hockey teams, then the more it was generated for us as well. We got a piece of that as well, and so that really set me up and helped me to learn customer journeys and looking at it in different ways. And then it was a bit of a no pressure situation, whereas I think if it within a team, there's a lot of pressure to sell the tickets and things like that. But this was an added bonus and an added service to these teams who are kind of just mostly paying for our website designs, our app designs, and then just paying for the streaming technology. But we recognized, and my boss recognized at the time, that like if we are able to do and invest some marketing into their streaming, then we can get a kickback of that. And it was definitely successful.
Most definitely. We're definitely kindred spirits in helping more people understand, I guess, the commercial realities of digital and how you can bring in revenue. And so I think,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that, yes, there was the Trojan horse of, hey, we want more streaming, we want more subscribers, and we get more money. But like, that's how digital makes money. Getting
Absolutely.
more subscribers, getting more ticket sales, and digitally savvy folk that are in the roles, whether they be digital or social or marketing, that have that intention and understand that is where
Yeah.
you have the success, and you become well aligned with your commercial folk. Because there's nothing like talking to your CFO and showing how much revenue your team brought in, and it's like you said, it does relieve that pressure.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, it was a great experience, and then from there, I got recruited, and I like to say, Disney made me choose a major,
Yeah.
and so I was recruited to run paid social for Walt Disney World Parks and Resorts, which that was a whole other layer of foundation that I was able to build upon with my digital marketing experience. And so working for a company like that, it was really great, and I learned so much.
Again, especially when I talk to people who have been in sport and then go to a corporate and vice versa, there is some real differences because of the,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Disney, arguably the biggest entertainment company in the world,
Yeah,
very an absolute behemoth, but then also, with a laser focus, if you're running social and running paid to get people into the parks,
yeah.
that's what you're tracking. So again, like you said, yeah, going to Disney University effectively would have been an amazing experience.
Yeah, and from there, I learned a lot more about audience segmentation. Disney is Disney; they're going to make their money, but they're also trying to figure out how to make more money, right? And so, how can we gain new customers? How can we acquire new customers? And so, I was in charge of kind of the I was in charge of quite a few segments, but one of my larger segments was just that brand awareness, targeting people who weren't Disney people or who haven't raised their hand digitally that they're Disney people. So targeting vacation goers and people who like roller coasters and theme parks, so that they can come and experience the Walt Disney World magic. And so I was able to really learn about the different audiences and how to be efficient with the spend that we had. And then I was able to take that into my next job, which was at the United States Tennis Association. Learning what I learned there at Disney definitely played a huge role in audience growth at the USTA.
And so, like you said, you went to the USTA, United States Tennis Association. Was it
Hmm.
all like were you always looking, even though you're in the world of sport, you're sort of, did you feel like you're a bit on the sidelines? You go, I want to get closer to the action. Was that something that you were looking for?
I was not. I was happy at Disney. I had, I worked for Walt Disney World during COVID. I was definitely blessed to not be furloughed during that time. So I ran a lot of the organic strategy for Walt Disney World and about 4 other Walt Disney World Parks accounts. And so I was one of, I think it was like 50 or 75 that kind of kept the lights on during that time. And so I was recruited to go to the USDA. I was not looking. I had just gotten promoted. I was like, yes, Disney, I'm here for it. I was going into the parks, getting the Disney ears, and I wasn't quite a Disney adult, but I appreciated what Disney's hustle and how they operated, and I learned a lot just about brand safety and all of that. But a recruiter reached out to me to recruit me to go to be the director of social media content strategy and analytics for the USDA US Open. So I wasn't looking.
So that role, USTA,
Mhm.
was obviously based in the US, and all the tournaments related to the for tennis across the US. Like,
Mhm.
what did that role entail?
Yeah, so USTA is the national governing body of tennis in America. So growing from a community standpoint, so we had 17 sections that was running local tennis facilities, clinics, whatever, to grow, and we wanted to get more rackets in people's hands, and so that was the nonprofit arm. And then on the other side of that was the US Open.
US Open, yeah.
Which, just coming off the US Open, and they just had another record breaking year. So my team ran social for the USTA, which was the community side, but also for the US Open, which is the pro side. So we're looking at the top tennis players in the world, whereas the USTA looking for me, who's shanking the ball across the street.
Yeah. So you have the same thing. I've got friends at Tennis Australia, and people
Mhm.
always think, "Oh, you don't do anything when the Australian Open's on. What do you do for the other 50 weeks of the year?" It's like, yeah, there's a lot of work. There's all these other tournaments. There's all this participation. We don't just work for 2 weeks a year,
Right,
but it
right.
is a
There's a
common
lot of lead up.
misconception. Yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of lead up to that. And they're like, well, it should be easy, right? Like, it's just 2 weeks, it's just 3 weeks. And I'm like, actually, no. Like, if we only operated 3 weeks out of the year, we'd neglect our audience. And so my team had an always on social media strategy. So we covered the Australian Open, the Roland Garros, and Wimbledon like it was our own. We didn't have video rights, but we would make do with our rights with the video content that we did have, and then we would cover 1000s and so like Indian Wells, Miami Open, and things like that, and to make sure our audience was informed. And I think that helped in the success and the growth that we were able to see at the U.S. Open and during the U.S. Open.
and it is a very collegial sport in that, the Grand Slam. Once you start getting on that circuit of tennis, you do get
Mm-hmm.
to know all the different Grand Slams, the people who are operating them,
It's
and
a
there is
whole new world.
and there's a circuit of people that travel around and do the same thing. So I've had,
Mm-hmm.
a few guests from Tennis Australia and the like that are in that ecosystem. What was it like going into the world of tennis initially?
It was different. It was I actually started after the 2021 US Open. So I started in October of 2021. So I actually had a year lead up, which ended up being Serena's last US Open, or
Yep,
or her last
Grand Slam.
tennis Grand Slam or tennis match ever, at least for right now.
Mm.
Um, and so it was different. I had gone to the US Open before, hadn't really I watched the Grand Slams. I love tennis because of the Williams sisters, so I really watched them. I didn't really follow tennis like that. And so getting into it, I'm like, wait, what is all of this? What are all these different tournaments? And so just really getting a chance to learn about the different tournaments, what it stands for, points and rankings and all of that, and how it all comes together around these Grand Slams. Then you're layering in the WTA, the ATP. What do we have rights to? Oh, the players, we really don't have rights to the players. There's no rights. That's one
Yeah.
thing that I did a presentation at the National Sports Forum this past year, me and my social media manager, and people were like, wait, hold on. You don't get time with these players? We're like, no, we're not contractually obligated. So within the sports social media world, they refer to the social media managers as the admin, and so the admin has a close relationship with the NBA players, the NFL players, and things like that. That is not necessarily the case, especially for the U.S. Open and the USTA. That's not necessarily the case. We see them definitely once a year, maybe twice a year if we go to a different tournament to gather content, because we try to get content leading up to the U.S. Open so that for us to have, or just to parse out content throughout the year as well. And so people are always shocked when I'm like, yeah, we have no contractual obligation. They have no contractual obligation to us at all. So if they want to skip our media station, they can. And so we have to kind of present compelling arguments and get very creative. If you take a look at the U.S. Open and the USTA social media accounts, like they get very creative to get in front of audiences and get new audiences.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, it does. We have the same thing where we do stuff with the NFL for the Australian and New Zealand markets, and yeah, we travel to the US for once or twice a year, and that's our opportunity to capture as much content that we might spread out over 12 months. Does it really make those? You really got to make those content capture moments and those things, and whatever you're trying to pitch winners.
Yeah, it's and you most of the time you have like 2 to 3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, and so you have to make it like super quick. So we're trying to we do this now even at the WTA. Like, what's the most impactful that we have? We have 5 minutes with this player. How can we maximize this? We are running through, we're doing like mock run throughs to make sure that everything flows together, that the instructions aren't intense or complicated. We want to try to make it as seamless as possible to get them in and out.
And you also want to have a pleasant and a fun experience for the player. Like,
absolutely.
You want to go, I love doing stuff for the US Open, or like you now in the WTA. The only other thing I want to ask about tennis, especially coming from your Disney background and audiences, is you've done previous sport with the WNBA.
Mm-hmm.
Tennis fans don't have a team. They're not barracking for
no,
a team and have that, but they're following players, which is where a lot of sports going. In the NBA, people are following the player, and so how when you went into that, you've got that fandom and how that's, I guess, different to traditional, I guess, stick a ball and team sport. But then you've also got this other part of the event goer, and I follow tennis. Oh no, I just go to the tennis. So you've got all these different audiences you've got to play with, which is great for a marketer. But then also you've got to set down a strategy to go, who am I doing this for? How do you unpack that piece in for tennis?
It's a lot of testing and learning. You'd be surprised. Some of the top tennis players may not perform well on social. And so we have to. The thing is, you have to try to paint it in. I call it painting outside the lines.
Yeah.
And so putting tennis with trends and sounds and making it as relevant as possible, all about memes and gifs and gifs. I'm not sure how we say
it's
it
gifs.
these days.
We'll just delete the fact you said it incorrectly. That's fine.
Hey, I'm here to appeal to the audiences. So
no, I don't want any GIF listeners. Sorry, if you're a GIF listener, stop listening.
Yeah, so I'm all for that, and I empower my team to let's think outside the box. How can we make this clip relevant to somebody who doesn't even watch tennis? How do we make this saying, I love post-match press. I feel like you learn so much about a person and about these players in their post match press, and you're able to clip those and put those out, and people are able to catch on to it, use them as sounds. I know last year Coco Golf, she said, "I want to thank my haters." The amount of people who use that sound to go into to talk about their own personal or put out their own personal content, like that's what we want.
Yeah.
We want you to use Coco Golf's quote to relate it to your personal life or whatever that is. And so it's definitely a strategy. So, when you're going into events like the US Open, like targeting and running paid ads for that. So you're looking for, like you said, the event goer, somebody who has a bucket list. But then you're looking at the true tennis fans and how you appeal to them. And so you're creating content for all of that. And for social, you kind of have this one opportunity, right, to create that. For paid ads and things like that, you can target. But for social, when you're thinking about it, you don't want to alienate any of your audience. So you want to try to make it as seamless as possible, that the tennis, we won't alienate the true tennis, the tennis purists.
Yeah.
You want, but we will also attract like a young audience. We'll also attract like a sports goer. And then we'll just attract somebody who just thinks something is funny. And so we're looking, as my team creates content, and as we're looking to strategize on how we're going to lean into something, that's what we're looking at. It's a lot of, most people think like it's the intern, that's the thing that's on social, like who gave the intern the keys, it's like, wait, we're seasoned
well past
professionals
that.
here.
Yeah, we're well past that.
We are seasoned professionals, and there was thought that went behind that post. There was thought that went behind that caption. If you thought that caption was just a coincidence, it wasn't. If you thought that caption, putting that together with this piece of content, this photo, it's not a coincidence. And so there was some thought that went into it. And so that's one thing that I had to kind of go around to people who work outside of social. They're like, oh, just throw it on social. And I'm like, oh, that makes me angry. Yeah. Please never say throw it on social. Marketers out there, or people that's out there that's listening to this, never tell a social person to throw it on social, because it's so much more to it than that. Because you are thinking about the audience. You are thinking about sentiment. How will this resonate with our tennis purists, with the new fan, with a sports goer? So all of that's being thought of in probably like a 5-minute split second, 5-minute span of pushing this piece of content out. And in tournament, it's not even that. You probably have like 15 to 30 seconds of like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. And you just have to trust your gut and go with it. We have some hiccups every now and then with that amount of content and matches and things like that. But for the most part, we're really thinking about all of those things as we're pushing out content.
Most definitely. I mean, again, we've all had that, hey, can you just throw this on social? But it's like, yes, we can, the first thing is, but then what is the intention? What do you want from this piece of content? Do you want people to, and we use the phrase, when you're talking about that Coco Golf piece, we use the phrase digital face paint. We want our fans to, use it like, if they're using that content, then that's them putting their hand up and saying they're a tennis fan, or they're a Coco Golf fan, or they're a fan of the humor that's in tennis. And then that builds them on the escalator. And that piece of intention, and, we're always working with our social team or clients, we're saying, why are we posting it? What's the, and that's, getting your team to ask that question and then, point back to your board or what your strategy is. Absolutely. And you're right, in the same way that a tennis player is deciding as they pull their hand down whether they're going to put backspin on it or not put backspin on it or whatever, the same thing applies in social. It's like, oh, how am I going to do this? Oh, no, this fits better for this, this platform over here because that's a different audience. So again, that's where it's getting more and more complex. How do you go about training, either training staff or instructing staff, or conversely, learning from staff that are, deep on those platforms to keep evolving that piece?
Yeah. So my motto is let them cook. So I let people operate in whatever their strengths are. And just seeing how are you going to approach this? How do you approach this situation right here if this were to come up? Yes, there's an overarching strategy, but I want you to cook within
Yep.
that strategy. I want you to perform and do what you do best within the strategy that we've set forth. And going into, say, like the U.S. Open, it's not like an NBA season or NFL season where you can we'll try something else next week. Oh no, there's another match that starts in like 30 minutes. So you either act now or you don't act at all. And so we really have to be quick. And so I am a person who take a look at the pieces that I have and then let you operate in that. So I came into, for the USTA and here for the WTA, I've come into an already established team. So I've, take my couple of months to take a step back, look from a leadership perspective, and figure out what pieces we have, where we have maybe strengths, weaknesses. And I'm asking my team, like, what do you feel your strengths are? Where do you feel your weaknesses are? Where do you want to grow? Where do you see yourself going? And then wherever they say, I'm going to let you operate in that until I say, like, I don't know if that's your thing. And then we have a conversation about it. But yeah, I am one to let people operate, and I can't, especially going into the US Open, you can't micromanage. If you micromanage the team, I think our first year we hit 1 billion. Our second year we hit 1.65 billion engagements. That's not happening with a micromanager. That's not happening with someone who's not letting someone cook. And I love food, so I'm gonna relate it to food. You don't you don't go and mess with the chef, right? You don't tell the chef that they need to put a little added salt or pepper or something in there. You let them do what they do. And so that's kind of my motto. And then if they need to go from posting on TikTok instead of posting on Twitter, then let's do that. Let's operate in you being excellent.
I think your chef analogy is a great one, because effectively you're like the head chef, and then your digital and social producers are like line cooks, and it's like it's coming through, and you're seeing it come through the pass, and you're like, yep, that looks good. And you've got that intensity, like the Grand Slams, the Olympics. Excuse me, you don't have that week to week. Monday morning quarterback. How did we go? It's like, no, you've got 14 NFL games in 14 days. That's sort of what it's like.
I say it's a Super Bowl. I described it as a Super Bowl every day for 21 straight days, about 17 times a day.
Yeah. I think the team at the Aussie Open have the hashtag sleepers for the week for that 2 weeks. It's like, we'll just power through, and yes, that week after we probably will have some sleep, but for that 2 weeks it's pretty intense.
Yeah. And so, and we, during that time and during those Grand Slams, it is a grind. You are just, you're there, you're in it. And I would always tell my family, and my friends and my guy kids, I have guy kids and things like that. I'm like, hey, just give me a FaceTime. Just bring me out of the tennis world just for a little bit. Just say hi. Let me talk to my little babies and things like that. And then I go back in, and I'm charged up and ready to go. But yeah, during that time, it is definitely a grind and a hustle, and matches going until 2:30 in the morning. And so I can't be there from 8 a.m. to 2:30 in the morning. So talking about letting someone cook, I trusted my team to be able to. I knighted them. I'm like, hey, you make the decision. I trust your decision. And if you think that your decision wasn't right, just let me know why you made that decision, and we can address it the next morning. So,
yeah. I mean, it is a terrific philosophy, because again, then you're empowering your team to, and they're looking for the latest trends or what's working. And again, you can't have a meeting to say, oh, this actual piece or this thing is trending, we need to jump on it. It's like, no, it's happening. We're running with it. If it's a certain thing that's happening through the tournament, like, it's cool, all chips in, let's push on that kind of stuff. So having that flexibility is super important. You mentioned we haven't even spoken about the WTA. We're talking in the tennis world, but you're still relatively new in the role for WTA. First of all, working for the WTA, the Women's Tennis Association, different than the USTA?
Yeah, so now there's more touch points, right? So the team has more touch points. I have someone in Guadalajara right now who's working, who's on the ground. And we introduce our social media team, our video production team. The players actually know some of our video production team and come to them with ideas and things like that. And so there's more touch points, which means you can get a little bit more personal and have more personal content that goes out there. And so, you know, women's tennis has been at the forefront of all of the movements, equal prize money. I think this past year, or at the end of 2023, tennis players were the highest paid women in sports. And so been at the forefront. And so one thing that we want to do as the Women's Tennis Association is to really expand their brands outside of the tennis court. And like, who are these people? Because I think, with the NBA, WNBA, there's a little bit more, you can get a little bit more personality and that comes through content and things like that. Because if they lose, they've played a full game and they have a game the next day or within the next 2 days. Whereas with a tennis player, a top player could possibly lose in the first round and then you don't hear from them until the next tournament. And so that could be like 2 or 3 weeks. And so we're trying to connect the tennis players and our athletes and to just the common person's interest. So Vika, she loves horseback riding. So we just put out a horse. We took her to a stable for her to go horseback riding, and we did some content pieces there. We took one athlete to a museum, an art museum, because she loves art, and she talked about her love for art and things like that. And so we want to connect the fans and grow that fan and grow that audience around these players outside of just like their match results, because they are way more than their match results. They have interest, and we want to know and hear about it, and they want to tell it. And so we want to give them that platform, and that's one of the things that we're doing from a marketing and social standpoint to really push them forward as not only athletes but just women in general.
I mean, it is very much following what you would sort of apply if you said, "Oh, here's an athlete strategy." They want, fans want to know that their favorite player is watching the same TV show as them or has a similar interest to them, and then that becomes
Absolutely.
something that deepens their ties to go, "Oh, I'm going to follow, that player," but then now I'll start following their tennis because they are also doing it. So it's a piece that some sports have a hard time, like getting into their personal lives or telling the personal stories of the athlete because it's sort of their brand. But because you've got these individual players, and a lot of them, but that you can tell some of these stories, and you would have players that say, "Hey, I want my story to be told. I want to have it, build a fan base for themselves."
Absolutely. Any type of personal nuggets we can pull out. And then learning their interests, we are able to then create custom content around them, right? So Coco Gauff won the US Open last year, and she mentioned she loved anime. So her championship graphic, we turned her into her favorite anime character, and she loved it. Fans were like, "Why would you do this?" And she's like, she shared it to her story. She's like, "I love this," because we heard them, and we understand that there's a layer to her. Like she said, she was watching anime in between her matches. So like, let's lean into that. Daniil Medvedev, he loves gaming. He's actually started to invest in gaming. So we did one of his celebrations, had that illustrated as a graphic for like his birthday or something like that. And so those little touch points, it may seem small to people, but for them, they're like, "Oh, they heard me, they paid attention to me. I'm not just like this person that hits the ball and wins games and sells tickets." But they've heard me, and they're trying to cater to me. So that's what we want to do. We want to break that ice to make sure that we show them that we care about their personal interests, and we want them to gain more fans through those personal interests.
I mean, I use this phrase on the podcast a lot. Steal with pride. When you're looking at another sports or entertainment brand, you go, "Well, I really like that. How can we adapt it?" And I saw you post a nod to the WNBA with your off court fit series of the tunnel and sort of showing
Yeah.
off the players. I mean, how did that process? How did you go? Oh, we like that idea. How did you get to that process of, oh, we want to do our version of that? Like, did that idea come from you looking at your social? Did it come from someone in your team? Like, how do those type of things work in your team?
Yeah, so it actually came. So we actually I have two marketing managers that report into me. So one that's over player marketing and this one that's over tournament marketing. And so during our first one-on-one, she said, I want to do some cool things. I love what the WNBA is doing with tunnel fits. I was like, yes, let's do it. That's been my one thing, because now we have all these tournaments that we're able to have touch points to and bring in people or create content with the players. And so we were like on the same page and didn't know it. And so she took it, she ran with it. We hired she was able to get a local photographer in Toronto to do it, a local photographer in Cincinnati to do it, and then we just kind of had fun with it. And I wanted to make sure that I posted on LinkedIn, but just to give that nod to the W, because they've definitely up the game, and the players, they really loved it. So the first go round, we had players actually come back to this. What player actually comes back on media day for a second day to redo something and redo a piece of content? And so that excitement, we knew that with that excitement, we knew we were going into the right direction. And so we're looking to we have some things cooking. Just to stay with that reference, we have some things cooking that we're excited to potentially do for 2025 for it. So excited about it.
Terrific. And again, because it is, tennis, both internally, is it in everyone's looking, that's what's happening over in Wimbledon. How, like, there's that piece, but then also looking at other sports and, what's
Yeah.
also connecting with your market is a great way. And that adapting, how do we do our version of it, both the logistics of it, but then also what's our twist, what's it going to work for? And then the fact that you're getting the players on board is the end goal every time.
Yeah, it's the end goal. And I will say the one difficult thing, that's difficult for us is that like every venue is different. So you have to find a space, and and then you also have all of the rights holders who want to be a part of media day. So we have to make it a natural part of the media day stop. And so there's a lot from a logistics standpoint to make it work. Which makes it a little. It's a nice little challenge for us, but we're making it work, and we're hoping that it really takes off in 2025.
Yeah, but I think that's the bit that I love doing. Yes, that's the idea, but there's all, like we said before, there's all these steps that are part of the idea that have to be done. And
Yeah.
that's just as important to learn all of those logistics and hurdles, and if it's jostling on a red carpet and how much space you need, all of those things
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
your content capture people and social people and your digital producers need to realize that it's not just we'll get a spot or a camera in here. It's all those pieces that go into that 35-second video that ends up going out, and people go, "Well done, social team. What you do? Just pull out your phone and capture that." It's like, no,
We
there's a
just
lot
threw
of
it
work.
up there. Just threw it up there. Threw it together.
Wanted to sort of go back to your focus with New Line and Disney and that commercial and partner. How do you work in the WTA in sponsored integrations and those kind of things that you potentially either planning or ask? How do you and your team work with your commercial partners and your commercial team to deliver results from a digital point of view?
Yeah, so just speaking from what's happening, what's happened prior to me coming. So we have social media series that are out there that the team has come up with for our partners. But right now, I'm kind of in the process of putting together a list of all of the things within social, within digital, that can be sponsored.
Yep.
That's something that I did that me and my team did for the USTA and US Open, and we we had great success. And so we're looking to do that and looking to monetize that, figuring out our rate card and making sure that that's all right. But yeah, so we're currently, we work hand in hand. We have a weekly meeting with our partnership team. But yeah, we right now we're going to go into a brainstorming phase to figure out, like, okay, what content do we want to push out? What do we want to do? What can be sponsored? Just to give our sponsorship team at least something to arm, a little bit to arm them with to go into a pitch meeting.
Yeah.
But then coming out of that pitch meeting, we want to make sure that, like, that the brands, one, that the content aligned, and it's not something that's just like, oh, let's just slap a logo on that. We want to make sure that, okay, this is your focus, this is your tagline. All right, let's figure out how we can make this a seamless partner integration.
Yeah, it's absolutely vital. I mean, there'll be a lot of listeners nodding that have been in the situation where something has just come down and said, oh, this is this social piece that we've sold to someone. Can you guys put it out? And it's like, well, yes, the answer is we're always a yes, we can, but it's like, it's got to, it's got to be that triangle of fit for the fan and fit for our platforms and fit for our sponsor. And if you don't have all of those things working, then the tripod, if it's a tripod, it falls over because it's only got two legs working.
Oh yeah, my motto is to make sure that the social media team has a seat at the table from the very beginning, because what I realized is that I saw it as I'm hearing someone talk about their goals and objectives. I'm already looking at it from a social standpoint.
Yeah.
You as a partnership person, you're probably looking at it in all different kinds of ways. But I am hearing it directly, and I'm able to speak to it potentially and ask potential questions, and maybe set some expectations of what we can do and what we're able to do. So I always say, make sure that social media, someone on the social team has a seat at the table for those pitch meetings. Even if it's just like a fly on the wall, being a fly on the wall, you don't have to be in person. They can just listen in. And we transformed that when I went over to the USTA for the US Open. And I mean, if you look at the sponsored content that's being pushed out, it is very social first. You're not.
Yeah.
I think prior to it was just like, hey, throw this Amex benefits on TV spot on the channels. And we're like, wait, no, it doesn't make any sense. And then I came from paid, so I could speak to the paid aspect of it, of being like, okay, well, if you want to use our brand for that, like, let's put a targeted campaign that's actually going to get you the results that you want, instead of just a post with a couple of hundred likes, And so was really able to speak to that and arm our team to be able to speak to that as well, to fight for what would make sense for our audience and for the channels and for the brand at the end of the day and the partnership.
And it's really good, even in that point where your team is ideating and come up with new concepts, to also like have, for you to be proactive as a team to say, oh, we're building out this new asset. This series is going to be really good. It's going to hit this type of audience, and effectively give that olive branch or give that asset to a commercial team and say, is there a partner that fits for this type of content? Because we're going to build it anyway.
Right.
And sort of get in that piece of not always, making it a two-way street between, digital and commercial. Is sort of how to get the relationship to work.
Yeah, and we're thinking, and that's where, we're going into brainstorming and planning to figure out, like, okay, like, what do we want to do? And sometimes it's a proof of concept. So even for the USTA this year, the previous year we did like a Glee cap, and so it was a daily Glee cap or Glee style recap of what happened. We did it and did that for just to test it out. And then I think this year when I looked, Chase had sponsored it. And so sometimes you have to do a proof of concept, but we were able to do that proof of concept. Hey, here's what we have. Look how it performed. I think this is a good sponsorable asset. And then be able to then from there you're able to slap a logo, and maybe even you can add in some. The good thing with content is that you can add in those lines and those goals and objectives in there easily. It's so easy to do it within content series and things like that. And so you just as I say, you got to let the social team cook and let them figure it out and make it work for you.
Most definitely. And it's really important that the commercial team who are out there selling all the time, that's their job,
Mm-hmm.
know that
Yeah.
you've got this cool content either in the pipeline or it's happening. Because that recap you were talking about, most likely that got sold in a hospitality suite last year to go, have you seen this? And then someone at Chase falls in love with the series for the rest of the tournament. Like, oh,
Yeah.
guys, we want that for next year.
We
And it
want
just
that. Yeah.
becomes, it helps their sales process. Lastly, I mean, we've talked a lot about the, running socials and those kind of things. The tech stack in social has grown year on year. Even in your time,
Mm-hmm.
new tools, and you would have worked with different tool sets at New Line and Disney than you work with at tennis. What's your current social tech stack look like? What are some of the social and digital tools that are helping you and your team succeed?
Yeah, so we use WSC for all of our match highlights, and so that definitely saves a lot of time with their automation, being able to automate points. Slate, which is a like a content creation app
Yep.
that's on your phone. You can put in sponsored elements. You can put in your
Put in the
brand, and
branded
so
piece and have the brand
yeah,
kit
and so
there. Yep.
your brand kit is right there. You don't have to play around and remember all the color codes and things like that. It's already right there for you to use, and so you're able to really as content consumption, the consumption of content is going into like, we want the raw, authentic, all of this like overly edited stuff. We don't want all that. So being able to really film something on your phone and just put your logo or put your branding into it so easily and then push it out, that's been easy. Really, really helpful. And then we also have like Pressbox Graphics, which is a little bit more, a little heavier, which I think they're Opta now.
Yeah, they are.
But
Yeah.
yeah, Opta. And so being able to push out scorecards and branded quote graphics and things like that. So that's kind of where we move in and out of on a day to day. We're onboardingmonday.com for our content planning. Being able to plan and work cross functionally, and then we use Hootsuite for our analytics and pulling that in just to make sure that we're trending in the right direction.
So many of those tools there, and yeah, we're lucky enough to use a bunch of those. The Clip Pro and the WSC, being able to automate and just get all out there, and then you just get to decide some amazing stuff. A lot of the tools that when I'm talking to different, it is about first, fast, and being accurate and authentic. So it's like all those tools you sort of describe help you get that clip, get that shot, get that sideline video that you've captured out as quickly, cleanly, and branded as possible, because that's just the world we're now living in social. To go, hey, you are competing with other tennis content providers, broadcast. You're working with your broadcasters, but you're also competing with your broadcasters, and so it's a fine balance to go.
And then
it's fast moving space.
And then you're competing with the 20,000 people who are on site as well. There was not a funny moment, but like when Michelle Obama was there last year, everyone else was able to post that she was there. And we were waiting for the approvals to post that she was there. And so we were like, we're an hour behind. Come on, and so, but yeah, there's so much competition, especially within the algorithm. With everybody's a content creator, right? And so, even leaning into that and doing UGC and all of that, like it's we want to be quick to post, but sometimes the casual fan will beat us to it.
No, most definitely. Reshina, I really do appreciate you taking the time. I want to get to the Sports Geek closing 5. You mentioned sport was a big part of your life. Do you remember the first sport event you ever attended?
I actually thought about this and I could not. And I think that's because I'm super spoiled working in sports, but I will say I grew up in Texas. So it's all about Friday Night Lights. It's all about Texas football. going, my high school team they were great. They were state champions. Actually won an ESPY for one of their games. State championship is at Cowboy Stadium, at the Dallas Cowboys Stadium. So I'm a little kid in elementary school going to the state championship of my future high school. So that was pretty amazing, and definitely memorable. I definitely remember that. It wasn't a professional game, but Friday nights in Texas, like, it's all about football.
Well, that's completely fine and completely valid, and it's not an answer anyone can Google, so it is your answer. You would have been to a lot of sports events in your time, and as much as the social and digital community has evolved, so has the world of food at sports events, especially at tennis. It seems to be leveling up. Do you have a favourite food memory or a go-to food at a sports event?
Hot dog. Always a hot dog. You got to get a hot dog.
All the fixins?
It depends on where I am. It depends. But mostly just give me like mustard, ketchup, and I'm good to go. But I will say, if I'm going to a stadium and they're known for something, I'm gonna try that, what they're known for. So for the US Open, I'm getting a honey deuce. For Wimbledon, I'm gonna get strawberries and cream, and a Pimm's, So I try to fit in with the culture and with their team culture as much as I can, but always a hot dog.
Yeah, the honey deuce is a phenomenon. Like, I'm talking about something that generates content. The amount of Instagram shots of people showing off their honey deuce, and even also I think I saw Serena Williams showing it off, and like her name's on the cup just a few times.
Just just casually, right? I don't even think she realized.
It was just a flex, just a flex.
a very odd, like just subtle flex right there.
What's the first app you open in the morning?
I am a woman of faith, so this is the Bible app. But I do have half of my team works in the UK, so sometimes when I'm waking up, there's like chaos going on. But I try my best to open up that Bible app first to ground me for the day.
Not a problem. Is there someone that the podcast listeners should give a follow? It might be someone you follow on social, or an author, or a colleague that they should check out.
Oh, you know what? I was actually thinking about it from just a social account and how they are operating right now.
That is more than you can do that.
I was thinking about this, and so don't want to go political, but if you give the Kamala HQ a follow and just like strip back what it's about, but like how they are really leaning into just like Gen Z and trying to get that young audience, I think it's going to be, I think that's one that's going to be studied here in a couple of years, win or lose. Even if she loses, I think that will be an account that's studied, and that strategy, and how that team just kind of let the interns, as they would say, run it. And I look at it sometimes and I'm like, oh wow, funny but educational all in the same.
Well, it is. I mean, like we've sort of talked about before, learning from other industries, sport is constantly saying we want to tackle and talk to the young fan. And what you're talking about there is they're going, well, these are social platforms that are dominated by younger voters.
Yep.
We need to talk to younger voters as younger voters want to be talked to.
Mm-hmm.
A post for a 50-year-old is not going to work for someone who's 22.
Right.
And so, like, it's a big leap for political, parties and that to go, we're going to lean into that. So we know from the world of sport, the barriers we had to break down to go, we want to put a joke on this platform. And, this sport is very serious, but this actually cuts through that audience.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a lot to learn. I mean, if you even look back at the early use of, if you're looking at political marketing, like how Obama used paid, and sort of changed the game when Meta was the platform of choice for most people. It's always a place to go, oh, hang on, what's happening over there? And then, like we've said before, how can it be applied to your sport? So
absolutely
not a problem with the answer. It is very much hey, who should people follow? And again, I think more the reason is more the point.
Absolutely, because that's the thing. That's the question right now. It's like, how do we, this Gen Z, this Gen Alpha, all of these, all these new generations that's coming up, like, how do we talk to them?
Yeah.
And I think that they are doing a great job right now of like listening to their audience and leaning, like, I mean, you have a presidential candidate talking about they're having a brat summer, like
No,
that
exactly.
is, and that's totally what some of these brands are missing, and I think maybe they should let the intern get to the
But that's the
get a
thing
hold of the
where
keys.
one, there's discussions going, when are we using Riz and Skibbity in our copy? Right. And it's like, and then there'll be people going, what do those words even mean? And it's
Right.
like, well, eventually there's going to be a pro league or a team or someone that's just going to start using those terms. And there'll be people
Absolutely.
going, it's not on Urban Dictionary. Where do I look these words up?
Yeah,
Um,
I do need some type of social media dictionary or something like that to, yeah, because I hear like it's lit. That's not a thing anymore. You can't say that. So
yeah.
I need to upgrade.
Exactly. So it is a funny one. And the last one, I always ask this both from a organization point of view and then also from a personal point of view. What social media platform is your MVP? So you can answer as yourself and then also as the WTA.
For myself, I mean, I love TikTok. Right now, I go down a lot of rabbit holes on TikTok.
Mhm.
And for the WTA from a brand standpoint, I think TikTok as well, because you can kind of let loose a little bit. That's where, I mean, I also follow Duolingo. Duolingo is one of my favorite accounts, and so you're able to really add a little razzle dazzle to your content and who you are, and get a totally different strategy from your other platforms. And so I would say that's my personal MVP and my brand MVP right now for the moment.
Most definitely. Well, Rashina, I really do appreciate you taking the time. We've run long, but that always means I've enjoyed the conversation.
No,
And
it's
so
been
hopefully
great.
everyone else has. If people who have been listening to this podcast want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
You can reach me and connect with me on LinkedIn, Reshina Warren, Reshina.
There we go. Rashida, thank you very much for coming to the podcast. And hopefully, if you come down to Australia for the Australian Open, I only live 20 minutes down the road. I'd love to catch up with you in January.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely connect with you.